My mother was fun-loving, very, very loving, very energetic, very much involved with, we would say civil rights, but more human rights. She was really concerned about helping people from all walks of life, and that was her way.
Dorothy Eure was born in 1927 in Omaha, Nebraska. She grew up in a large family that struggled with poverty.
They used to have to sell cans, empty cans, and find cans on the street just to eat. And she said she never wanted other people to go through the suffering of being poor that she went through.
Eure believed that all people should have the opportunity to succeed. She began her social activism by starting the Tomorrow's World Club in high school, which worked to get more African American teachers hired in schools. She also attended the March on Washington in 1963 and was involved in picketing during the Civil Rights Movement. Lorraine Johnson was born on January 21st, 1932 in East St. Louis, Illinois, but moved to Omaha with her family. Like Eure, Johnson experienced poverty as a child.
She wanted us, and wanted herself, obviously, to fight for those at the bottom. So, and I think part of it was motivated by what she went through and what she experienced as a child.
Johnson and Eure crossed paths in Omaha, where they both fight for social justice.
Throughout the 1960s and 70s, Omaha was very segregated. Minority populations not only faced discrimination in everyday life, but also in education, social activities, and housing opportunities.
They had housing that was zoned off. We could only live in a certain part of our city. And that certain part was, I think, Cummins on the south side, maybe to Ames, close to Ames on the north side, 16th Street on the east side, and if you lived up on 40th Street on the west side, we called the black suburbs. You were wealthy. But those were the zoning areas, and you could not move outside of that area.
Dorothy worked at the Legal Aid Society of Nebraska for 25 years. There, she fought for housing equality and getting Social Security benefits for those in poverty. She also took her work to the streets.
My mother, she had us on picket lines and demonstration lines back when I was a little boy. And we would have marching, sit-ins, pray-ins, and we would go down to the city hall at that time, and we would kneel down in the courtroom and pray while we were being arrested.
African Americans were also excluded from social activities. They were not allowed to enter certain areas, restaurants, or parks due to the racism and segregation in Omaha. Dorothy Eure and her family did not let this discourage them from sponsoring their own entertainment and social activities.
So we started doing plays in the garage. Then, when I was about to graduate from high school at Central High, my brother and I and my mom, we started talking about starting a black theater here in Omaha. And it would be the first black theater in the state of Nebraska. We performed all over at colleges, all throughout Nebraska. We would try to charge money, but people didn't have money, so we just was happy to get an audience. So come on in and watch us. So they came on in and we put on plays for them.
Additionally, minorities faced a segregated educational system. Although the Supreme Court had outlawed segregated schooling in 1954, segregated housing and lack of busing left schools in Omaha very racially divided.
I wanted to go to Lewis and Clark real bad because some of my best friends were out there. But in order for me to go to Lewis and Clark, I had to pay my own way. We didn't have busing. And basically, the school district sent back a form or something to my parents and said basically I couldn't go there because it was outside of my district.
Segregated schooling left many non-white schools with a lack of funding. They didn't have as much money for building upkeep and buying new textbooks as the wealthier white schools, although they were in the same district. Eure Johnson and 5 other women decided to sue the Omaha Public School District in order to get busing to integrate to the city's schools.
The 7 women who brought the case were all African American women. And what was fascinating about them, a lot of them didn't have a lot of formal education. These were women who basically said, we're not going to take this for our kids anymore. For the most part, these were women who were not aligned with any major organizations, says, you know, we got to do this.
So we were all protesting and attend these mass school board meetings. I mean, everybody would be there. And finally, after a whole lot, even legislation in Lincoln, it was finally passed that these schools would be desegregated. We didn't like busing being shipped out to different schools, but what it did, it brought white students in to North Omaha schools, and guess what? When they brought them white kids into North Omaha schools, they started fixing up those schools. They started bringing in new school books and everything. And my mom was a big part of the desegregation of the public schools. Her and Eure Johnson, and there's a few others involved with that.
In 2009, community members and Darrell Eure decided to commemorate the work of Eure Johnson and Dorothy Eure by applying to have a street named in their honor. The city approved on August 2, 2009, a portion of 30th Street just east of the OPS administration building was given as a memorial to 2 women who never stopped fighting for social justice.